Hey there everyone, I'm Ashley Bullington and you're watching The Campfire. This week we're breaking down District 26A. We're going a little south this week in the greater Houston area. These are the teams that you'll be seeing in 26A after realignment. Fort Bend Austin, Fort Bend Bush, Fort Bend Clements, Fort Bend Dulles, Fort Bend Elkins, Ridgepoint, Fort Bend Travis, and George Ranch. The Fort Bend area and the Richmond area are in this district. 26A has some solid teams from top to bottom. You've got Travis, Elkins, George Ranch, and more. Vote for the team that you think will take the district crown on our Twitter account. It's at IHSS Houston. Now, we have a quick trivia question for you. Which of these tournaments did pro golfer and Dulles alumni Billy Ray Brown not win? A, the Hartford Open, B, the Byron Nelson, C, the Colonial, or D, Deposit Guarantee Golf Classic? What can be the answer? Well, if you think you have the correct answer, go anywhere that you can find the Campfire. We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, and leave a comment with what you believe the right answer is. We'll release it on Saturday, though, for those who aren't going to cheat and look it up. Also, if you're a podcast person, we have the Campfire in podcast form. You can go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and find our entire collection of Inside High School Sports podcasts. Now it's time for the film session, presented by your local Geico offices in Cypress, Katy, Spring, and Pearland. District 26A remains very similar to what it's looked like in recent years. After being comprised of 8 Fort Bend ISD schools, Kempner drops down to Class 5A, and George Ranch slides in from District 23-6A to replace the Cougars and join the 7 remaining Fort Bend programs. Fort Bend Travis ended Ridgepoint's 5-year reign atop this league last season, as Travis snapped the Panthers' 27-game district win streak. The Tigers closed out a perfect 10-0 regular season for the first time in school history. Travis head coach Trey Sissom has his work cut out if the Tigers hope to replicate that success this fall, as he'll need to replace 11 all-district standouts from a year ago, including the district MVP quarterback Eric Rodriguez. Ridgepoint, on the other hand, should be much more experienced in 2020. The Panthers return 6 all-district performers who will no doubt be hungry to reclaim the district crown. Former Lamar Consolidated head coach Rick LaFavors takes over as Ridgepoint's head coach. And with a loaded roster, the Purple Panthers should be on the prowl this fall. Elkins has reached the playoffs in back-to-back seasons, 6 of the last 7 years. The Knights' prolific offense racked up more than 42 points per game in 2019, but they'll have to replace a handful of all-district players on that side of the ball. The good news is that Elkins returns 6 all-district stars, including 4 on defense. The Bush Broncos bucked their way back into the postseason in 2019. Defense was the name of the game for Bush last season, with the Broncos holding opponents to 8 points a contest in Bush's 5 victories. With all 3 district returnees on the defensive side of the ball, look for Bush to once again rely on that stout defense. Fort Bend Austin just missed out on a playoff berth, finishing in a 3-way tie for 4th and losing the tiebreaker to Bush. The Bulldogs haven't reached the postseason since 2013, but hope this year they end that drought. Keep an eye on the Bulldogs as a potential sleeper team in 26A. Dulles earned a playoff spot in 2018, but the Vikings took a step back last season, struggling to a 2-8 record. The biggest difference was a dip in offensive output, as the Vikings went from scoring 36 points a game in 2018 to less than 15 points a contest in 2019. For Dulles to bounce back this fall, the Vikings offense needs to return to its 2018 form. Fort Bend Clements hadn't won more than 2 games since 2010, but the Rangers have won a total of 3 games the last 2 years and hope to take the next step in the rebuilding process this season. As we mentioned earlier, George Ranch is the new kid on the block and the only non-Fort Bend ISD school in this district. The Longhorns captured a state title in Class 5A back in 2015, but they've only won one playoff game since, making the jump to 6A in 2016. 9 George Ranch players earned all-district honors a year ago in 23 6A, and 5 of those are back for the Longhorns. With a veteran roster, George Ranch is capable for challenging for the district title in its first season in this league. And those special teams are made of special players. We highlight some of those players from the 26A district and our Players on the Rise, presented by Grimaldi's Pizzeria. George Ranch wide receiver Javon Gibson will be a senior in the 2020 season. The 3-star commit has a career 777 receiving yards and 11 touchdowns. Gibson is committed to Baylor University for college. Fort Bend Elkins wide receiver Savion Sims is looking to have a big year. Elkins finished their 2019 campaign 8-3, with Sims coming into his own as a key piece of the offense. In 2019, he had over 350 yards receiving and 5 touchdowns. Ridgepoint running back Keith Jackson is ready to go for his final year with the Panthers. He's become a token in the Ridgepoint offensive scheme and will be leaned on heavily under new head coach Rick LaFavors. In his career, Jackson has 647 rushing yards and 8 total touchdowns. Another running back from this district is Fort Bend Bush's Donovan Nixon, who was just a sophomore in 2019. In his varsity debut season, Nixon played in 11 games and had 412 yards on 80 carries. He also had a total 5 touchdowns. Fort Bend Travis defensive back Cameron Oliver is one of the best in the state. He was voted first team All-State in 2019 and is hoping to help continue his team success in 2020. Last season, he had 2 touchdown interceptions and 7 total interceptions. And those athletes have accomplished great things on the gridiron. But do you know somebody from the high school sports scene accomplishing great things in your community? A player, coach, or team going that extra mile. Nominate them for a Chevy Spotlight. To nominate, go to IHSSChevySpotlight.com and stay tuned to our social media accounts to see if your nomination is highlighted. Now it's time for our Media Day segment, where we talk to coaches about their teams and their district for the 2020 season.
Hey there, everyone. I have the head coach of Fort Bend, Travis Trey Sissom, on with me. Coach Sissom, long time no see. How's it going?
We're doing well. Like I say, excited to hopefully get some good news from UIL and our district and get back to doing some football.
Going 10-0 and dethroning Ridgepoint to take the district title. Talk about that team that you guys had in the 2019 season and how that momentum really just kept going all season long.
Yeah, it's you kind of look toward the special group of kids that we had when you start handing out the all the success that we had and the accolades that come with it. Obviously, our quarterback and our receiver that we had, Eric Rodriguez, is going to play at A&M Commerce, and then Parker Washington's off to Penn State. They're already there, getting ready for hopefully their 2020 season. But they really led us on the offensive side. But I think probably the biggest thing that was different for us was our defense really played well. We had a lot of guys up front, in Jamani Gibson, who's going to Central Arkansas, and Pat Brown is going to join Eric at A&M Commerce as well. Those guys really led us up front. And, it was a total team effort. Anytime you can go 10-1 like we did, there's a lot of little things that go into it, and I don't think you can really put your finger on one. But we had such a great group of seniors that have really come together over the past 3 years, blending in their varsity season, and it just made it that much more special.
And you said it, you guys had a great group of seniors, but you also graduated a lot of seniors. Like you said, you lost your quarterback in Eric Rodriguez, who was the district MVP. You lost Parker Washington, who literally was a human highlight reel. Do you feel like you have the replacements to help you get back to that top spot for the 2020 season?
Yeah, I think, that's kind of the tough spot with us not having spring football and summers and all the things that we've been kind of put on the shelf a little bit. That's normally where you would fill those spots and answer a lot of those questions. We love the kids we have coming back. We've got Andre Smith, who's one of our running backs. He's going to be more of an all-purpose player for us. He's a 3-year starter for us. And then I think the biggest thing on the offensive side will be up front. We've got 2 really, really talented kids coming back up front, and then we're going to replace some of the guys we lost with some juniors that are probably as talented as we've had come through. So we're excited about what we do on offense. I think one of the good things that we've shown is really it doesn't really matter who's in there at times. We think we're going to be successful just because of what we do and how we do it. Defensively, we're bringing a lot of kids back on the back end, which is exciting. We've got Cameron Oliver and Cameron Moore, both big-time players. Cameron Oliver just committed to UNLV this past week, so we're excited for him. He's had 14 interceptions over the last 2 years. He's two-time first-team All-State. So, we're going to probably have to lean on our defense a little bit more than what we have and let the offense kind of mature and grow a little bit. But luckily, like I say, we're going to have a couple of non-district games now going into district, and we feel pretty good about what we got coming back.
Hey, not an easy non-district schedule you've got there. Some of the best around the greater Houston area. But taking a look at your district, you've got Ridgepoint and George Ranch. Winning another title is going to be kind of tough. How do you size up your 26A competition?
Yeah, I think that's the interesting point there was George Ranch, because they're the wild card in it. We've never played George Ranch. We're probably closer to them than we are to most Fort Bend schools because they're right down the street from us. But, I think with Ridgepoint bringing the kids back that they have, Bush has always got talented kid. Elkins is going to be as well coached as you can find with Coach Brantley and his crew that they have over there. So there's a lot of really top end talent in 26A. It's going to take a battle every week. Even the teams that might not have had a lot of success are still going to be competitive when you start looking at Austin, where Coach Arabonglo, who is my offensive coordinator, this will be his second year, so they're going to be stepping up to the plate. And Clement and Dulles as well are two teams that they have great kids, and you can't sleep on the talent that they have. So we feel confident in the kids we have coming back. Obviously, we'd like to have a few more returners on the offensive side to make us sleep a little easier, but it's going to be a knockdown, dragged out for sure.
Coach, thank you so much for joining us here on the Campfire. Good luck to you and your team in the 2020 season. We'll be right back after a couple of messages from our sponsors.
Chevrolet Inside High School Sports is brought to you by your Houston area Chevy dealers. Visit your nearest dealer to test drive our award-winning products. The film session is presented by your local Geico offices in Cypress, Katy, Spring, and Pearland. To get more information or a quote, go to geico.com/Houston. The Players on the Rise is presented by Grimaldi's Coal Brick Oven Pizzeria. Grimaldi's Pizzeria is open for dine-in, carry-out, and delivery. Visit grimaldispizzeria.com.
Welcome back to the Campfire. District 26A has a plethora of great teams and phenomenal players. You've got George Ranch, who is always a solid program. Fort Bend Travis, who was almost unstoppable in 2019. And a Ridgepoint squad that has a new head coach that made his way from Lamar Consolidated and is hoping to bring that success with him to Ridgepoint. I'm not going to make any predictions on this, but we have someone who will. Now it's time for the district breakdown. We welcome in Inside High School Sports Insider, Matt Harris, to break down the district a little more and maybe give some insight on what he thinks is going to happen in the 2020 season. Matt?
Thanks, Ashley. This week, we're talking Fort Bend ISD and George Ranch, who joins the district after spending last season paired with the Alief and Pearland ISD schools. This district has plenty of talent at the top, and I also think there's a clear favorite here, and we'll start with that team. For the first time since moving up to 6A, Ridgepoint did not win its district, instead finishing second after a loss to a really good Travis squad. I think the Fort Bend ISD schools only get a one-year reprieve on Ridgepoint's reign. I have the Panthers back on top in 2020. One of the biggest reasons for that is Ridgepoint brings in friend of the show, Rick LaFavors, to take over as head coach. LaFavors turned around Lamar Consolidated in just a few seasons and is one of the better coaches in the area in my opinion. But just having a good coach won't get a team too far. It's a good thing the cupboard is far from bare. John Paul Richardson is an excellent receiver, and he figures to be the top target for Bert Emanuel Jr., who takes the reins at quarterback, though he does have a good amount of varsity experience already, despite not being the full-time starter last season. Marvin Session and Keith Jackson round out what should be one of the better offenses in the area. First-team All-District tight end Parker Menifee is back as well, and they'll have a good collection of talent at offensive line to help facilitate that success. DK Kalu impressed as a freshman at his spot on the defensive line last season and returns to help lead a unit that is usually the Panthers' calling card in a hard-nosed defense. Expect Ridgepoint to retake the district crown this season. Next up on my preview list is Travis, the team that unseated Ridgepoint for the district title in 2019. Eric Rodriguez was phenomenal at quarterback, and Parker Washington, now at Penn State, helped him look even better. Kalen Schenkel completed a three-headed monster of an offensive attack at running back, but all three are gone, so who steps up? Running back Andre Smith saw some meaningful time last season behind Schenkel, so he'll help a lot considering the Tigers' offensive line should be strong. Beyond that, I'm not too sure who steps up, but I'm excited to find out. Travis has a good program, and I'm confident the Tigers can replace the historic talent they lost. While Bush is losing its fair share of talent as well, I think the Broncos should be back in contention in 2020. The biggest hit to that departing talent is at quarterback, where it is unclear who will step up. But whoever it is will have plenty of weapons. Running back Donovan Nixon is back, along with wideout Anthony Herrera. The defense should be strong as well, with the return of Charlton Bibb and Brandon Chambers, both of whom made an all-district team at linebacker, in addition to Henry Tatum in the secondary. The loss of wideout and defensive back Jalen Weatherspoon to graduation hurts, but Bush will certainly be back in the back end of the playoff conversation. Another squad that figures to be squarely in the mix for one of the final spots is the Elkins Knights. A talented defense will have to lead the way as a young offense gets its feet wet. Savion Sims and Jordan Robertson return out wide, but I have no idea who will be getting them the ball. The defense will be led by Malik Rugby and Torian Crawford anchoring the line and Blake Thompson holding down the secondary. If the offense can figure things out, I think Elkins could grab a playoff spot. If not, then it might be a long season for the Knights. The district newcomers should factor into the playoff picture as well. George Ranch returns a nice collection of offensive talent that includes what I think is a nice big three. Quarterback Sam Miller threw 20 touchdowns last year, with his main target being Javon Gibson, who caught nearly half of those TD passes. Hyman Drinkard is back as well after a sophomore season that saw the running back go for more than 1,000 yards and 12 scores of his own. The front seven returns dominant lineman Dave Babalola and a solid linebacking core, and Jeffrey Ichukwu will anchor the defensive backs from his spot at safety. I have George Ranch making some noise in its new district with a second place finish. Last season, Clements failed to score more than 20 points in any game, and that offense returns just 2 starters. But the good news is the defense returns boatloads of talent, with Matt McGinnis leading the way at linebacker. And despite returning just 2 starters, the offense should have plenty of weapons in Patrick Smith and Chase Bell at wide receiver and David Kazmervitz at tight end. The big question will be figuring out who will be getting the ball out to those weapons at quarterback. The Rangers' success this season really depends on the answer to that question. Meanwhile, Dulles is quite the opposite. The only thing worse than returning just 2 offensive starters is only returning 1, and the Vikings defense returns just 3 starters. With 4 starters back in total, Dulles will need to retool most of the team. Brian Alanes saw time at wide receiver last season and will likely slot in as the Vikings' number 1 wideout. Second-year coach Shane Bird also likes Gerald Hayes at running back. The linebacking core will be the strength of the defense, with Jackson Tilley and Chris Smith returning. There are still a ton of holes to fill, but last year's team won just 2 games. I think that provides some promise for the guys who will step up to fill the lost production. If they can be better than the ones who came before them, Dulles can absolutely improve this season. Our final team to discuss is the Austin Bulldogs, who just missed out on the playoffs last season. Quarterback Braden Aboud got his feet wet as a sophomore last season and will be back to lead the offense. Unfortunately, he won't have his top target, as Troy O'Meara was part of the nation's 8th best recruiting class, and he'll look to make an early impact at UT. Instead, Jamal Franklin and Daniel Aloso will look to fill O'Meara's production at wideout, leaving the Bulldogs in relatively good hands out wide. The defense returns a good amount of production as well, and they'll be led by Chase Myers on the line. This district has plenty of talented teams at the top, and I think there are several teams behind that who will look to grab a playoff spot. I have Ridgepoint, George Ranch, and Travis slotting in at the top, with the final playoff spot going to either Austin, Bush, or Elkins. For that spot, I'm going with my team to watch, the Bush Broncos. I think Bush returns the best collection of talent among those three, but the thing that gives me hesitation is that Bush has to replace its quarterback. Still, I think the Broncos can lean on past playoff experience, and they should be pretty good on defense, and they return a strong offensive line. If Bush can figure out the quarterback spot, and if some guys can step up on the outside to make life easier for the new starter, I think the fourth playoff spot is Bush's to lose. Finally, my player to watch for 26A is Ridgepoint quarterback Bert Emanuel Jr. Ridgepoint has all the talent necessary to win this district and to make a deep playoff run, but not many teams make it very far in the playoffs in this state without a good quarterback. Emanuel saw time last season and was the offensive newcomer of the year for the district. Now as the full-time starter, Emanuel will have a good amount of weight on his shoulders. The expectations will be high, but I think he's up for it. If Ridgepoint is to make a deep run this season, watch out for the young gunslinger, Bert Emanuel Jr. That's all I have for my 26A preview, and we'll get to hit on one of the best districts in the entire state next week, and I'm looking forward to it. Back to you, Ashley.
Matt, great insight as always. Thanks. I'll see you next week. That's all we have for this edition of the Campfire. Come back every Monday for a new show. Until next time, though, follow our social media accounts. We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube that'll be bringing you content all focused on District 26A. I'm Ashley Bullington, and thank you so much for watching the Campfire.